Good day, everyone. Nick is here, one of the account executive of Parliament Group, and thank you for joining me today. The purpose of this presentation is to discuss solvency ratios and their importance in evaluating the financial health of a company. But first, let's define solvency ratios. Solvency ratios are financial metrics that measure a company's ability to meet its long-term financial obligations. In other words, they help us assess whether a company has the resources and financial ability to pay its debts and continue operating in the long run. There are several types there are several different solvency ratios that we can use to evaluate a company's solvency. One common solvency ratio is the debt to equity ratio, interest coverage ratio, and debt to asset ratio. But first, let's now move on to the debt to equity ratio. This ratio measures the amount of debt a company has relative to its equity. In other words, it shows us the proportion of a company's financing that comes from debt versus equity. A high debt to equity ratio may indicate that the company is heavily reliant on a borrowing to finance its operation. This could be a sign of financial risk, as a high level of debt can increase a company's vulnerability to economic downturns or changes in interest rates. Next, other important solvency ratio is the interest coverage ratio. The ratio measures a company's ability to make its interest payments on its debt. It is calculated by dividing a company's earnings before interest and taxes, or EBIT, by its interest expenses. A low interest coverage ratio may indicate that the company is struggling to pay its debts and could be a risk of default. On the other hand, a high interest coverage ratio suggests that a company has a strong ability to meet its debt obligations. Let's now move forward to the third solvency ratio that is often used, and it is the debt to assets ratio. This ratio measures the percentage of the company's assets that are financed by debt. A high debt to assets ratio may indicate that a company is heavily leveraged and could be at risk of financial distress. In conclusion, solvency ratios are important tools for evaluating the financial health of a company. They help us assess a company's ability to meet its long-term financial obligations and identify potential financial risk. When making investment decisions or assessing the financial risk of a company, it is important to consider solvency ratios along with other financial metrics. That's all for today. That is solvency ratios. Thank you for your attention. I hope you found this presentation on solvency ratios informative and useful. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to ask. Again, this is Nick, one of the account executive in Parliament Group. See you and goodbye.